Hello and welcome to MAP-ECU3 tuning. Today we're going to be talking about basic fuel table tuning. Fuel table can be accessed using function 4 or the tab labelled fuel. The default is graph mode. So this is a 3D graph mode. Using the cursor keys you can move the current zone, and the center of the cross is the zone that you are actually tuning. Now you'll notice that you can press the plus key, for example, to increase the fuel, minus to decrease the fuel, and that adjustment percentage is set in the top right hand corner. In this case it's set to 5%. If I change that to 1% and move the cursor and press plus, you'll notice the movement was significantly less than previously. Plus plus, minus, and as I press the plus key or the minus key, you'll notice in the status box down the bottom left of the screen a brief message. So that message says writing the zone, so it's real-time tuning of that zone. So in graph mode you can only change one zone at a time. You also have a follow me zone. If you press the space bar, it will relocate to the current part of the zone, the table being used, and you can press plus or minus to adjust that zone, but it will move as the vehicle's changing RPM, as vacuum's changing, and so forth. So, and you can toggle it just by pressing the space bar. And press the space bar again, it'll toggle off, and you can take control again with the cursor keys. You'll notice there's a red line here showing you which RPM you're currently at. This is about 3000 RPM, and what vacuum we're currently at on a test unit, and we're at atmospheric pressure, in other words 0 psi. Now if you press the T key you can move into what we call table mode, and this is the same data but in table mode. You can move the cursor around, you'll see the little yellow, the dotted lines there. If you hit the space bar you'll be in follow me mode again, and that'll follow around as you are moving the cursor, or the engine is changing RPMs in this case. Again, adjust percentage down here. If I press plus it'll change it by 1%, minus reduce by 1%, and so forth. And again, the status, if you watch status you'll see a little message flash, which is the writing message. The boxes down the bottom of the screen show you the status of the current settings, inputs, and so forth. And you can, in this mode, change more than one set of zones at once. So I can use the cursor or the mouse to grab those zones and hit the plus key, which will change all of those, and you'll notice that there was a number of zones that were actually being updated. If I do that again, this time, for example, hit the minus key, watch the status bar, status box, it'll tell you which zones are being written to those zones. You could grab the whole table if you wanted, but it will take a fair amount of time, in which case it's your choice, but you can do that. The other thing you can do is position yourself on a cursor or a box or a zone and sample an input, like the TPS we showed you before, using the I key. Now this will sample the current MAF input if it's configured. At the moment you'll notice it went to 0, so that's because the MAF input is not configured. So I'll go into ECU configuration. If the MAF sensor was still in place, I'll go to input output, configure the MAF input to be MAF. OK, you'll see that's writing the settings there. If I now press the I key, it will sample the MAF sensor input. I'll vary that MAF sensor input and you'll see it's changing. So that's a way of getting data into the table if you're learning from a MAF sensor. Screen, when offline, i.e. not connected online, is copy and paste. So in this case, and bulk imports input and output. So for example, if we switch to the secondary table, we currently have some data in the secondary table. Perhaps we want to zero the whole table out. We just highlight the whole table, hit 0, the whole table is now 0. If we then want to bulk copy, for example, a tune table from primary, we can select the entire table, press Ctrl C to copy it, press the S key for secondary, press Ctrl V, and we've pasted into the secondary area. Other functions available, so for example, you could do it line by line. You can copy that line, Ctrl C, and we can then paste it down here if we want to. So it's a way of doing chunks. You can do selected areas, we can copy that area and paste it in that area. So very easy for manipulating blocks. You can also press values, so for example just pre-fill all these with 1 volt for example, and so forth. So quite flexible in terms of what you can do with cut and paste and editing the data. The other function that's available is interpolation. So perhaps you've got some learned data. Let's simulate that. We'll zero the fuel table, start with 0 volts here, and at 35 psi we're dealing with 5 volts. We can select that column, press the Ctrl I key, and it will interpolate from where to go and create a nice linear scale. We could then, for example, copy that into the next set of zones. We can also interpolate sideways, so if we put 5 volts in here, Control I to interpolate, then we've also got a interpolated function. The sky's the limit. We can interpolate the entire table if we want. And if we turn to graph mode, you'll see that's the interpolated linear. Now it's only linear, but it can be useful if you're doing a small section. So for example, if you've got zero the fuel table, if you've got 1 volt here, and you know that this value is 1.5, but you're missing the bits in between, you just highlight those, press Ctrl I, and it'll interpolate the values in between. And this can be done any way. So for example, if you've just got some sections missing, this is 2 volts here, collect those, Control I, interpolate that way. So that's the basic fuel tuning set up in table mode. Most people will tune in graph mode. So if we go back to primary, which is a more realistic fuel table, most people will actually tune in this mode, use the plus key, the minus key, and as I said in one of the other training videos, if you go to MAP-ECU configuration, you can change it to adjust by constant, in which case we've got constant of 1, and you'll see a barely perceptible change. In fact, it's so small you won't even see it change. Now we're currently offline, so you won't write to the ECU, but constant mode is for very fine adjustments, especially in Kalman vortex frequency mode, for 1 Hz adjustments down an idle and light cruise. Very useful for those functions. So that's the fuel table mode. Thank you.